So the astrology of the week of 13 September 2021 through 19 September 2021 has Venus, continuing this daunting path, this difficult path of Venus through Scorpio. And while Mars comes into Libra, and then we have Venus making a square, a dynamic square to Saturn and Aquarius. And so it's a week about relationships, about the challenge that comes in relationship and how those are opportunities ultimately when we need to grow and kind of slough off stulted relationships. So let's get into the charts, let's get into the week here. And I just want to say that beginning point, that initial point about relationships and kind of, stultified, I think that's the word, or just kind of relationships that maybe need some activation. That's a real opportunity. Anytime you have Venus struggling in the sky, it's a purgation transit, it's a cleanse transit for how we feel good and who makes us feel good and how we get needs met in relational activity. And remember, relationships are of all kinds. We have relationships with the self, with others, with objects, with groups of people. So I encourage us to think about Venus. Certainly it can be romantic, it could be our love lives, but it can also be these other things we're in relationship with, and the pleasures that we derive from the things that we're in relationships with, the things we give our attention to, can be very Venusian. And so when Venus in the transiting sky comes under pressure, there's often, these are often times when it's, we get to take a look at that, and through, if there is discomfort, how do we work with it, modulate, mutate, transform, so that we come out better and can appreciate the times of Venus as much stronger. Transits like this are very much opportunities for growth. I know that's a catchphrase, but it's true. It's a favorite phrase of mine. This is an opportunity for growth. We kind of can look at things in life as opportunities for growth, or just sort of give up in a way. And I just hope I'm gonna keep moving, and I hope you guys out there are motivated to keep moving, stay strong, even in a week like this where there is some challenging malefic energy dominating the skies. So that's a bit of the introduction here. And well, actually, maybe I'll just say this one other point. I mean, we do have in the current sky, both benefic planets, Venus and Jupiter, are ruled by Mars and Saturn respectively. And so it's a time when there's a dominance of this maybe malefic energy. Now when Mars comes into Libra early here in the week, we do get a bit of an exchange of signs with Venus. So that may take some of the kind of malefic dose off. But these are great, again, opportunities for facing challenge, for confronting difficulty, for saying, yes, okay, I'll face it. I'm gonna face it. I'm gonna go into it. Tell me, getting into the roots of things, cutting out things, weeds, let's say, discovering what weeds even are, going into the unknown. I just watched this film, The Truman Show, again. Amazing picture, but the famous scene, and this is a spoiler at the end, where Truman bows and then he walks through a door where it's just dark and he leaves the only world he had ever known. That's the opportunity of a malefic dominated sky. We have to enter into the unknown, and often through fear and scary things that we have to face and confront. So if that's happening for you at all this week, just, I encourage you to have courage and find love and dig deep and get strong, because you'll be rewarded for it. You'll be rewarded for it. Okay, so let's dive in here. Let's take a look at these aspects, the first aspects of the week. And by the way, this video, I didn't do a little introduction, but I will be taking a look at the planetary aspects, the sign changes of the planets, the stations, direct or retrograde stations of the planets. Secondly, I'll look at the signs that the moon moves through. Always have to take a look at that. Third, I'm going to look in chronological order, some of the charts I'm interested in this week, some of the most important astrological charts as I see them for the week. And then finally, we'll do a tarot cartomancy reading to add a symbol set, overlay a symbol set with the astrology, and to see if we can get some more information. So let's do it, let's go. So here, first we've got, like I said, on Tuesday, Mars will come into Libra, on Wednesday, pardon me. Monday is the 13th, Tuesday is the 14th, and Wednesday is the 15th. So here, Wednesday, very early in Central Europe, about 2 a.m. in the morning. So that will be Tuesday in North America. Mars will jump in here to Libra. The thing about it is that it brings this sign exchange with Venus and Scorpio being ruled by Mars in Libra now. And so they can't see each other. It's a doubling up of the energy of Mars in Libra, Venus and Scorpio, but they're not able to talk. They're not able to share or communicate. And I think it underscores this sense of being isolated or being on our own or being kind of out in the wilderness or out to sea. These are times that can be trying in terms of, but like I said, great opportunities, because it's where we find out what our character is, our mettle, our muster, what we have as human beings. And I bet you're way more powerful than maybe you've considered, or maybe you have considered how powerful you are, but these are times to put it into practice, where maybe there isn't a sense of connection or tangibility or help even. You don't know where the help is, you might not know that. And what do you do? What do you do at a time when things seem intangible, and there's no help? How do you respond to that as a human being? And ultimately, I think we're left with a spiritual yearning, and we have to basically break through the floors and find a solid ground to land on, which is ultimately, in my worldview, the spiritual core of all beings, this godlike center that we have, that is our jewel, that is so special. We get to discover that in a time like this, without aspects between Venus and Mars, and they're ruling each other. And they're in signs where there's a bit of discomfort. For Venus, because Venus is having to maybe be separated, disconnected, and discombobulated by the force of Mars. And Mars doesn't get to act in the ways that it's used to. It has to submit to connection when maybe it wants to break away. It's very uncomfortable for Mars. I mean, if you thinking about times when you wanted to leave and you can't, you have to engage. That's what Mars in Libra is. So we get that on the 15th of September, on Wednesday, and then it continues. It continues here. On Friday, Venus will square Saturn. Venus perfects a square with Saturn. Saturn in Aquarius, Venus in Scorpio. A very different relationship between Venus and Saturn now than it was, 3 weeks ago, when Venus perfected a trine to Saturn. And Saturn, the exaltation ruler of Libra, Venus in Libra, we were able to rely on that Saturn to kind of inform longevity in relationship and get clarity about boundaries in a useful, connective way. Now Venus is kind of already unable to connect in certain ways in Scorpio, but now has to deal with the dynamic limitation of Saturn and the more limited, harder construct that Saturn can impose on our connections. And I have here, know is the operative word this week. Unbridled, feel good, that might be a very strong Venus, is not supported. And so, this is the key. We don't know what feeling good is unless it's gone. That's how we get to define what good is, and that's how we get to learn about what feels good to us, is by experiencing times when that wasn't present, and then working and then saying, okay, I know I don't like that. And then you can cross that off your lists and move into your future realities, knowing better how to set boundaries and maneuver. But you don't get that knowledge without a rough edge and without periods where we have to grapple with what it's like to be cut off, separated, and removed from connection. So there's great opportunity there. There's great opportunity this week with a Venus that's struggling so much. And by the way, this is not about natal astrology necessarily. I mean, this placement can be useful in natal astrology, because these are folks often that are comfortable in these spaces of discomfort. They're able to go in and not afraid, like I said, of getting into this sort of nitty-gritty of things that might be uncomfortable for other people. So the Venus and Scorpio energy is one I really enjoy, actually. So, okay, let me come now to, that's the week, that's the aspects this week. There's not a lot going on, but it's all about Venus, because Venus will rule Mars when Mars comes into Libra on Wednesday, and then Venus makes the square to Saturn. So there's a lot of Venus becomes responsible for Mars, and then faces off with Saturn this week. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the moon signs. Let's check out what the moon's doing. The moon here, another reason why I think this week is not the easiest of weeks. The moon gets the Jupiter-Saturn, Saturn-Jupiter cycle via domicile rulership. So the moon will start the week in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. Then it has to go through Capricorn, the sign of its fall, ruled by Saturn, then Aquarius, ruled by Saturn with Saturn and Jupiter, and then it finally enters Pisces and then ruled by Jupiter. So most of this week, Tuesday through Saturday, large chunks of the week will be a Saturn-ruled moon, while Saturn is so strong. And I just think about fall arriving in the Northern Hemisphere. Where I am, it's getting cooler. I mean, the days are getting shorter, and we're coming now down into the season where things fall away, Scorpio season, that fixed part of the fall. I know we're not even in Libra season yet. The sun has not entered Libra, but Venus is front-running the sky right now. Venus is in Scorpio, front-running and activating the Scorpio energy. And so we do have a little bit of that being pinged right now. And I think with the Saturn ruled moon this week, remember Saturn rules Aquarius and Capricorn, two signs in the Northern Hemisphere that when the sun travels through those signs, it's winter. And so that's where the coolness can come in from Saturn. But I think the Saturn ruled moon is triggering this sense of what are we doing with the restriction we all face right now? Staring us down from the global situation. There might be more restrictions coming to maybe in your personal life. Where are you limited? Where are you kind of wading through this Aquarian moment for the last 3.5 months that we'll have Jupiter and Saturn co-present in Aquarius? How are you kind of using limits, but maybe using them to kind of elevate through the limitation? Remember, when you have a restriction, like this is why professors will say, give me a 5-paragraph essay. Maybe that's high school or like freshman year of college, but with only 5 paragraphs, I mean, you could change the world. And that restriction may be what is needed to coalesce the thought form and the words into those key paragraphs. If you said, give me 500 pages, it might dissipate the message. So sometimes the limit allows us to rise even higher, but it can be tough to restrict ourselves. Once we get comfortable with it, we're able to then maybe rise to some higher levels. So think about this week along those terms. I was thinking earlier, a few days ago, I mean, Aquarius with Jupiter and Saturn, what an opportunity. Once every 20 years they'll be together. Once every 60 years they'll be together in Aquarius, Jupiter and Saturn. And this is that final stretch. When Venus was in Libra and Venus was making an overcoming trine to Jupiter and Saturn, I think that was some real indicators of maybe what your Aquarius story could be. Venus isn't now overcoming via the strong trine, but Venus still is overcoming via a square from Scorpio, and Venus will be in Capricorn making, Sagittarius making that sextile, overcoming sextile later in the fall. So this is just a kind of a side note here. Thinking about Aquarius, Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius, these last 3 months, how can you maximize and expand using the restrictions that are placed upon you? Great opportunities for that. And especially with the context of the world situation we're in. We're very restricted right now. How are you using that? What are you doing to adapt and then sort of deploy against that backdrop or against that very active stricture? So let's come now to my chronological list of transits for the week. I'm going to start off here Wednesday. This is Mars moving into Libra. And what I have here, Mars, remember, is the breaking away instinct. It's good to essentialize each planet into a core energy that planet embodies. One that's not negative or positive. It's just an energy that's objectively it, right? And Mars, it's the breaking away energy. It's the energy to move out from, to separate from, and to leave and move out from something. The stasis of the status quo, Mars wants to break that stasis, turn that something static into something dynamic. That's its natural desire, and that can be a powerful and amazing thing. I mean, and it can also be a bad thing, and so it all depends on the context and the facts on the ground. In Libra, this is the problem, is that breaking away instinct of Mars mixes now with the essential feature or quality of Venus, which is to envelop and to touch and to merge and to connect and to feel pleasure and to appreciate beauty. Venus often has, there can be a certain passive quality, I think, with Venus, in the sense that you want to stay and locked in. Like I'm in this new apartment. I'm looking at a beautiful painting here. There's another beautiful painting in my other room. Venus signifies mixing of colors and beautiful colors in the ancient texts we have. I can't appreciate this painting unless I actually look at it and stop, not break away, stop and stay with these colors. And actually, this is so funny, I haven't even looked at this painting yet. I've been here for like a week, and I've got a lot of Mars in my chart, a lot of strong Mars, like I'm always moving and building and shaking. But I need to stop and check out this painting because it's amazing. These colors are amazing. Maybe I'll get a picture of that and put it here in the video just so you all can see it. But it's an example that Venus wants to stay still and appreciate. Mars wants to break out and break away. When you have Mars now having to filter through the Venusian, that's what happens when a planet is in a sign ruled by another planet. That other planet becomes the filter. And so Mars can't really break away. It's got to figure out how to use its power, but use it to stay still and appreciate. It can be very difficult when you want to leave, when you want to break away. You find this in relationships sometimes. People are in a relationship, they may feel stuck. They may feel like I'm not in love with my partner. I want to break out, I want to break away. That's the Mars being restricted by Venus, by the current situation of a relational set. And so it can be very trying and challenging. I think the opportunities here is that we're going to be forced into facing others with Mars and Libra. There's no escape. There's no way out here. And it's a good chance and a good opportunity to develop your diplomatic skills, your negotiation abilities, your ability of just being honest, of being vulnerable. Mars and Libra needs vulnerability, big vulnerability, the courage to stay and then show others the hurt, the woundedness, the truth. And the pain that can bring about. I mean, it's so hard. I don't know if you've ever had to sit someone down and get really vulnerable. It's not fun, but there's breakthroughs and there's honesty and there are new levels of spiritual attunement that come from that. Whereas Mars might just want to say, see ya, and break away. So this is not the ghosting placement, Mars and Libra. This is the placement of, staying with something, having a difficult conversation, being forced into having difficult conversations. And I think you can use diplomacy. You can transmute the running instinct into and trying to integrate others in. Like you might want to share why you want to leave a situation or why you're angry or why you're impassioned. Sharing that with others might be a good strategy here to kind of externalize that martial feel instead of holding it in. And then I think that the trine to Jupiter and Saturn, the whole time that Mars is in Libra, Mars will have this trine to Jupiter and Saturn. There is some support here from that Jupiter giving a little bit of what it can give. Saturn maybe providing some structure. Maybe you're wanting to break out of your situations that are long-standing or feel fixed right now. Saturn's so strong in Aquarius, exaltation ruler of Libra. So that might be worth exploring those depths too. It's like what's fixed in my life? What do I feel like I can't change? And thinking about even expressing the frustration with that in a healthy way on paper. Like I feel frustrated, this part of my life won't change. I'd like it to change. There is an articulation component to Libra because of Mercury's rulership by triplicity. Libra wants to talk, it's an air sign, it wants to think and talk. And so it's a great egress or outlet for the impassioned feelings of restriction and maybe the frustration that can come from that. Get it out on paper, open your journal. I just like God, I like the concept, I like using a concept of God. You can say, God, help me, why is my life like this? I feel trapped for this way. Just get some of that out so you're not alone, you're not alone. That's that trine with Jupiter and Saturn. Okay, that's the first chart, this Mars and Libra chart. Really cool time, actually, and I'll just say this here. Mars being in Libra at the same time while Venus is in Scorpio does not happen very often. It's happened about 11 times since 1979. Only 11 years since 1979. That's 42 years. Only 11 of those. So what is that, about 1/4, 25% of the years include this. And there's some whole decades, 12-year gaps where it doesn't happen at all. None of the 1990s had this energy, and this is the last time we'll have this Venus-Mars exchange of signs until 2034. So it's a good opportunity to think about Venus and Mars and explore the continuum of how those planets can manifest with difficulty or with power. And like I said, when a planet gets in the sign of its exile, which both of these planets are exiled, they're in the sign opposite the sign they rule. It's really a time to say, all right, let me explore why I think things are why I think something is uncomfortable, why I think something is bad or challenging, it gives us a chance to bring that into light and bring that into maybe the front burner. So they're great opportunities to improve our life skills, living skills, all of that, particularly with relationships maybe, because both Mars and Venus are the planets of sex, love, and relationships in the ancient texts. There's actually an ancient justification for something like Mars, women are from Mars and men are from Venus, that book title. And I know that's particularly gendered and gendered assigned to the planets, but it's gendered in the ancient texts. I don't think, these planets have to be anything to do with what gender that people are. You can be Martial or Venusian, independent of your gender identity, just to be clear about that. But it is relational, is my point. You have the two opposites, right? Taurus, Scorpio are opposite each other. That is the one node of a relation and the other node. Often in relationships, not always, you do have maybe a more masculine and a more feminine then matching and kind of balancing each other out energetically. And that's the structure of the zodiacal rulership scheme, is built in that Mars and Saturn are the relational signs because they're always opposite each other. Taurus, Scorpio, Libra, Aries. First house opposite seventh house. First house is the house of you, seventh house is the house of the other. So in our astrological system, these opposite signs are about relations. And we can think about polarities of energy. Even just dancing is a good metaphor for this. Often you have a leader in a dance. It doesn't depend on your gender. Someone is the leading and someone is following. The leader is the maybe so-called masculine, the follower is the so-called feminine or more passive energy. And that's the dance of life. And so we're in a time now when those energies are flopped, where maybe the leader is having trouble leading and the other party that's used to just following is being called to lead a little bit. So we get to really explore our challenges in this kind of relational dynamic. Great opportunity, doesn't come again until 2034. All right, let me go to the next chart. This is Friday, September 17th, 8 in the morning here in Central Europe. Venus and Saturn will perfect that. And I have here connection meets coldness. Desire gets a cold shoulder. It's just the idea, like, if you can't have what you want, you can't always get what you want. The Rolling Stones, rest in peace, Charlie Watts, he passed on recently. But you can't always get what you want. And it's good when you have the sky showing these symbols to think about not only what you want, but why you aren't satisfied in this moment, what's preventing you from getting what you want, and go deeper. Why do you want it? You think you may want something, but maybe you get it and you don't. Our wants are sometimes superficial and based on what other people tell us we should have or want. So I think the restriction from desire and pleasure is a real chance to live without it. Fasting is something I've been doing a lot recently, and it's so amazing. Start fasting and pretty soon it's like, I don't even want to eat again. I love only eating like one meal a day. It's a freedom that comes with that. But it's hard to envision being able to live that way until I've gone through the restriction and limitation and the adjustment period around it. So this is a good chance, I feel like, when the desire is shut out with Saturn, what is my phone was about to drop there. Why can't you have what you want? What do you really need? Emotionally, what's driving the desires? This is the fixed scorpionic energy. What are the deep emotional structures that maybe you're living from or have been living from for many years? We get our so-called buttons installed by family and our culture and our early childhood experiences really formulate some of our tendencies and our emotional responses. What's still there fixed that needs to be questioned or drudged up? For example, healing, love and healing, and holding that difficulty in a kind of a loving, energetic. That's what we can have going on here. Remember, the squares are dynamic; they force change. So there might be kind of a forced purgation here during this time on Friday. What I have here, it's darkest before the dawn. When one is separated, isolated, sad, and disturbed, where do you turn? This is what I was saying earlier. You have to release into the divine source of life and the divine feminine embrace. I do think that Venus kicks us in, when we think about Venus, to the whole mythology, the collective human mythology of the divine, not defined, divine feminine. Across all cultures, you have this idea of this divine feminine energy. You know, those little clay sculptures or those stone sculptures of the large-breasted, larger woman that they're kind of from our archaic times, where we've always worshipped the kind of fecundity of the femininity, the great Mother Gaia or Mother Earth energy that I think Venus at its best can symbolize, or at least part of what it can symbolize. And this is what we have to release into, that divine source of life. You might even go Gnostic here, Sophia, wisdom. You know, what can come to your rescue in the time of great need? I do think there's a feminine quality to that energy, because we think here about mothers and the milk from the mother, how that's the sustenance at the earliest phases of life. That is what I'm describing here. There's a kind of spiritual sustenance, if it's an etheric energy or a life force. I was saying earlier about the jewel of the heart. This is what we're forced to tap into in times like these. And I like to conceptualize it as a divine feminine or a divine mother. I'm kind of a mama's boy. There's nothing like being held by that mommy, you know, I love you, mommy, and just being held and being kind of caressed by that energy. So I think that's what we're going to be forced into with a cold Saturn, a Venus and with a martial edge in Scorpio, trying to butt up against this cold Saturn. We really may need to turn to the divine sustenance that's on offer. Okay, so next chart, 17th of September. This is Friday, and this is out of chronological order, so I might miss my ordering here, but this is earlier that day. So before Venus perfects the square to Saturn, which happens at 8 in the morning on Friday in Central Europe, at 1 in the morning that same day, the moon comes into Aquarius and will pass Mars, will aspect Mars by a trine, and then be traveling in between Mars and Saturn in the morning here on Friday, Thursday evening in North America. And this is a moon that it has to carry the light of Mars into translating that light to Saturn. The moon is a translator of light, and when it translates Mars light into Saturn light, we call that enclosed between the malefic energy. It's just the rougher energies of our life. You know, life is suffering. That's the Buddhist noble truth. Noble truth, like it's a noble truth. I think it's important to underscore that. So-called malefic energy is not bad at all. It's noble. It's a noble truth to acknowledge pain and suffering. Without Saturn and Mars, there's nothing. I'm telling you guys that there's nothing. Okay, Saturn and Mars are key essential planets for everything in life. Mars allows us to break out of the stasis, like I referred to earlier. Saturn allows us to go in to a shell and to separate for long periods of time as needed. And that's so healing. You know, I talked about fasting. You look at animals in nature, when they get injured, they go fast because of the immune system gets kicked up when we just separate and stop. That's the power of Saturn. So anyhow, from astrological symbol perspective, from the astrological symbol perspective, malefic enclosures of the moon sometimes bring a rough edge to reality. I always track them, as you all know. I always talk about them when I want to. I pretty much 80%. I usually like the benefic enclosure because I'd like to be the bearer of good news. I'll put like a malefic enclosure, maybe 1 out of 3 I'll include, usually in a slow week, but this week we have one. And the thing about this lunar mansion, I always go right to lunar mansions to understand the moon when it's enclosed. And this is that 24th lunar mansion, Asad al-Sud. And this one, it's the same mansion that the sun is in during Valentine's Day. It's good for love and marriage, for increasing income, commerce, finances, building. Saturn is a very constructive energy where you focus on one thing and exclude other things. That's Saturn, right? Restrict for a purpose. But when the moon's enclosed here, maybe it's time to, it says it's not good for those in power or travel by water. I'm just thinking its essence is nurture, nutrition, and fulfillment. So what I'm thinking here is just trying to like tone it down here Thursday night in North America or Friday morning in Europe. Maybe just, you know, focus on your needs, lay in bed, go longer in bed, drink that water. I've been making these mixes of like fruits and vegetables and just drinking those, trying to get nourishment and nourished properly. So maybe time for that, or just fasting even. You might want to fast during all of this and just go pray, humility. God, thank you for giving me a life, So I just give you that warning about that moon. And often you'll see with stuff like this, when I've tracked this, when these moons get really, challenged, you'll see things explode, like Twitter fights or tough news. It's not at all uncommon. And actually we're on that. I was going to say we're on the anniversary of 9/11. I'll pull up the 9/11 chart. I'm recording this on the anniversary of 9/11. I believe 9/11. I know it has a Moon Saturn conjunction in the 9/11 chart, and that is actually in Gemini. I've got it. I remember it now. It's a Moon Saturn co-presence in the air sign Gemini in the 9/11 chart. It's one example of just how when the Moon gets near Saturn, it can be rough. There can be rough, even mundane astrological events. So I won't get that up because it just take time here. But yeah, that one's in my memory. It was Gemini, Saturn and Gemini. So with the Moon there, and Mars in early Cap. So the Moon was actually, it wasn't enclosed in the 9/11 chart, but it was going to hit Mars pretty soon. Actually, you know what? Let's just get it up. I have it saved right in my solar fire. It will take a second here. Let's just get it up and take a look at it. It's not an enclosure. I'm pretty sure about that, but maybe I'm wrong. So here it is, September 11th, 2001, 9/11. This is a whole field of astrology, 9/11 astrology. It's a whole field, and it's really interesting. And I haven't done deep dives. Here's the chart. So yeah, the Moon was not carrying Saturn's light in this chart. You can see it there. The last aspect the Moon made was not an aspect to Saturn. The Moon had perfected a trine to, it looks like, the Sun, and was carrying the solar light now into its conjunction. The next aspect the Moon makes is an aspect to Mars. This is why you always have to track the last aspect of the Moon and the next aspect of the Moon, because if the next aspect is Mars or Saturn, or the last aspect is Mars or Saturn, it's not ideal because the Moon has to blend with that energy. And when you can blend it with like the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, or Venus, that's what we really want to do, is blend it with those energies. So anyhow, this is that 9/11 chart. Look at that Saturn Mercury trine. It's almost exact in this chart, and it's right on the ascendant. This is the first plane, when the first plane hit. I'm not going to say much more about this chart, but that is stunning. That is stunning. Okay, let me come back to the actual purpose of this talk, which is the weekly astrology. And so that is that enclosed Moon on Friday morning, then at 1, then we have, or Thursday evening in North America, then 7 hours later you get Venus perfecting its square to Saturn on Friday. And then now we come to, let's see here, this is the Venus-Saturn square. I already talked about that, and let me change that, say Venus-Saturn. This is the Venus-Saturn square, which comes on Friday. And let's see, transit of the week. Now we're finally to my transit of the week, 18 September. This is Saturday evening in Central Europe. I'm waiting here for the Moon to enter Pisces. I thought about maybe that Sagittarius Moon should be a transit of the week, but the thing about it is the Moon in Sag still has Mars in the mutable Virgo. So it's just that Mars Moon square is not an ideal energetic for finding just the best energy. When I do these transits of the week, it's really looking for relaxed energy, comfortable energy, energy that is easygoing. I'm all for malefic energy, don't get me wrong, but it's more like we have to engage with it when it comes. I don't think, I'm all for like chill rest, And as an electional astrologer and electional astrology principles, that's what we look for, are these calmer skies and calmer moments when we want to elect from those things. So here it is, the transit of the week. The Moon, it's the only Moon doesn't have the Moon in a square or conjunction to Mars or Saturn, except for that Cap Moon, but the Moon's fallen in Capricorn. So, the Moon is exiled in Capricorn. And so let's see here. I'm just correcting this document as I write here. Moon is exiled in Capricorn, but the moon is trine Venus. This is one of the things I wanted to point out in the chart. The moon gives that has a Venus trine. Venus overcomes the moon from Scorpio here, doing what it can do. I mean, Venus is harmed right now, but it can still try to send some good vibes, just like Jupiter may be restricted, but it can kind of give what it's able to give. And it's a water sign heavy moment with this Pisces moon all weekend, or the later half of the weekend, where you have maybe emotional breakthroughs. Maybe if there's difficult Venusian and emotional stuff earlier in the week, by the time the weekend hits, there's times to maybe feel more calm about it, feel healed, understand what is happening in the inner life or the inner world. And so I think we're being led this week to some kind of breakthrough moments here, Saturday, Sunday, Saturday evening, and then into Sunday in Europe, and then earlier on Saturday and all of Sunday in North America. So just look for those breakthroughs. And I'm remembering when Jupiter came into Pisces earlier this year, it was really a subtler power. It was really profound, but it wasn't like instant, oh, Jupiter abundance. It was a subtle shift. And I feel like the deeper truths that were accessible were pretty potent, but it wasn't surface level stuff. Pisces isn't quite a surface level energy. There is a kind of expanded depth that comes with Pisces, the greater benefic, the large Jupiter. We're looking at big turns here with the emotions, and I think that's why I'm calling it a breakthrough. So, all right, that is the weekly astrology. That is it. Let's get some tarot cards. Let's check the tarot. Let's see what these symbols have for us this week. I'm going to get the first card from the playing card deck. Okay, first card is, let's see here, where is that? The first card is the Page of Spades, the Page of Spades. Wonderful. Yeah, I saw this card this week in a reading, and this is a lovely energy. I think about pages again as the beginnings of things, the newness or the new energy, or the budding potential that comes from that phase of anything in life. Sometimes we just start a relationship, we just flirt with someone, and it's uncertain if they want to like us back, and it's the budding phase where there's risk, there's uncertainty, things might not go our way. That's what the Page or Jack energy is. And when we're dealing with spades, we're talking about the air element here. And I just spoke about Gemini. This would correspond to mutable air or Gemini. We're looking at a card relating to Gemini. I'm thinking about recent past. Remember those Gemini eclipses in June? We just had a activation. We're in between two syzygies. The new moon in Virgo that is squaring the nodes and squaring those Gemini eclipses, the eclipse points that were in Gemini from June. And we'll have a full moon in Pisces next week. So we're in this land between eclipses, and with syzygies conjoining the bendings, the north and south bending. So maybe that's what this is speaking to, like thinking about how important June was and Gemini. And the other thing I would say is we're about to enter in another Mercury retrograde. We had one during that eclipse season, and we're about to have a Mercury retrograde in September. It will begin in Libra, the air sign Libra. So maybe this is a warning here in a way about getting our affairs in order before that Mercury retrograde hits in the air sign Libra. And just getting our affairs in order and being prepared to maybe not do business. I think that hits in the very end of September. I'll be talking all about it here. And yeah, just symbolically, if you're feeling, I said vulnerable earlier in the video, but if you're feeling hesitant and unsure, it's okay. It's okay to be unsure. Take a time away, relax. With Saturn and Aquarius, these are all good months to just chill. No need to rush. No need to rush at all, especially with Mars and Libra. No need to rush. It's about connection and about how we relate, not what we're doing, Mars and Libra. Okay, let's get the last card here. This is going to be from the Tarot of Marseille. Let's see if we get a knight. We've been getting knights every week. No, this week we did not get a knight. This is going to be the... let's see here, where is that? The Jean Dodal Tarot is the tarot that I use. It's old Tarot of Marseille. Some of the earliest Tarot of Marseille imagery comes here. This is the Lover's card, which is, again, Gemini. This card corresponds to Gemini in the major arcana. So we've got two cards in my correspondence systems that say Gemini, Gemini, Gemini. So this is screaming at Gemini at us. Let me just, when this happens, because it's direct correspondences to Gemini, I'm just going to bring up here the chart of the moment here. We have to, and we have to say, what's going on with Gemini? What's up with Gemini? Well, the North Node is still in Gemini. So again, that whole idea about eclipses and the bendings, where we have the sun at the bendings and we'll have that Pisces full moon at the south bending next week. So I think that's really what this is kicking us into. Just remember that, eclipse season's coming, November, December. There is an eclipses. I mean, I've been thinking so much about the power of the nodes in readings. It's so powerful. It's one of the most powerful things you can ever examine. That's why I understand now more than I ever have. Some astrologers, their practice is really just like the nodes and maybe Uranus. That's what they look at, or put Pluto in. And they just sit with those placements. And you can do really whole readings just deeply going into the nodes. And they move every 18 months. They change signs. So there's something about the Gemini eclipses that maybe this is saying that we don't have another eclipse in Gemini, but maybe it's just indicative here that these last few months, the North Node comes into Taurus in January 2022. So we only have 4.5 months of the node here, the North Node in Gemini. These can be climactic periods with the North Node finishing out its time. Sometimes it waits to bring the goodies at the end of a sign or the beginning of a sign, because remember the nodes move backwards. So I'm really going to be keyed in here. I'm thinking a lot more about this Gemini nodal transit. And I did a lot of research on this. I was publishing on Twitter my lists of what this means from a mundane astrological perspective. One of the big things was the surveillance society, what seems to be timed with the North Node in Gemini. And so I'll be keyed into that as we get into the fall updates, or how the technology will be infused with the movement of people. I think that's something that'll be on my radar. So anyhow, that's what I am focused on here with the reading. I think the one last thing I'll say, this is the Lovers card. The symbolism of the Lovers is all about relations and difficulty in relationships. Look, they're fighting over someone here. There's one person in the middle, two people fighting over that person, and Cupid's arrow. So this is like a love quarrel. And I'll just remind us that we're in a time when Mars is in Venus's Libra and Venus is in Mars's Scorpio. There could be quarrels, lovers' quarrels or love quarreling. I talked all about this at the beginning, feeling trapped, the difficulty of wanting to break away and break out. I think this is underscoring that theme again. So take care of yourself this week in your relationships. Love the people that, even if you're in a challenging time with others, be sure you can say, look, I'm sending them some love. My view is this: I can dislike the behavior of the person. I can really think that person's things about them are wrong or bad, but I will always love them. I always send the love, because you can hold difficult people in a container of love. And doesn't mean I have to hang out with them, but I don't have to have hate in my heart around anybody. So I'll leave you with that. That's the weekly astrology. That's the weekly tarot. Have an awesome week. This is S.J. Anderson. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to my channel. You can support me by liking and subscribing the video. You can always go to my website, sjanderson144.com, and schedule an astrology reading, a tarot reading, or you can support my Patreon. Helps keep the videos going. Have an awesome day. Talk soon.